To the October 11th, 2017 Nashoba Regional School Committee meeting. This is a regular meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. The first item on the agenda, as always, is citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments? We have citizens, but we don't have comments. Okay. School committee the school committee chair updates is the next one. I've got three really quick things, actually four quick things. Just a reminder to the chairs of the subcommittees that your minutes need to be updated and in the packet, and I think personnel is all set, finance is pretty good. Policy set, finance is good, and personnel, when are we going to review those? Monday, okay, perfect, so then we'll be all caught up. Perfect, thank you. And then every meeting we're going to go over this 12-month calendar, because as you know it's going to shift and change. There were a couple of changes. They're reflected on the agenda for tonight. The Opec trust meeting is the one item on that section for October that we don't have a date, but Pat's going to come up later on and talk to us about that, and so we'll get to that. And then the only other thing I have is that last week the school district hosted the Tri-Town meeting for the first time, and it was a very informative meeting. Thank you very much, Alita, Superintendent Clenchy, for all the work that you did, including getting our goals and our operating protocols up, and it was really lovely. I think it was nice. Everybody kind of had a chance to mill around and talk afterwards. It was really, really well received. And I think moving forward, I'll be putting regular items on those Tri-Town meetings to make them a little bit more relevant, because while we would like people to watch our meetings, read our minutes, come to the meetings, we know that they may not. And because these folks that attend the meetings are leadership in the towns, we'll be bringing some of the highlights of what's happening in the district from the previous month and what may be coming up to them, so there are no surprises. But it was very well received, so thank you. And thank you to all the school committee members that did show up to that meeting. Strong representation. Okay, and whoever's phone that is, feel free to answer it outside. And student representative report. Do we have a student representative?
Yes, our regular representative had a field hockey game tonight. So Elena Nays is stepping in. Elena is a journalism student who also is a member of the drama club, and she's going to deliver this month's report.
So Elena, take a deep breath right now. Take a deep breath. It's okay. And come on up to the table so you can feel like a little bit less intimidated from speaking over there. And thank you for filling in, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
From the athletics department, the fall season, the golf team is 7-4-1 and will be competing in the Midwatch B-League Championship next Monday at the Creepin Keys. The boys and girls cross country team finished up their regular season this week. The team will be competing in the league championship on October 28th. The volleyball team has improved 11-4 and has clinched a playoff spot. The team raised over $3,500 that has been donated to the American Cancer Society in memory of Michelle Farnsworth, and the Jimmy Fund in memory of Lee Pepper. The boys soccer team beat Groton last week to earn their first win. The girls soccer team has improved 9-1 and clinched the playoff spot with their win last night over Marlborough. Both soccer teams are hosting youth nights this Saturday for youth players throughout the district. The field hockey team is 8-0-2 and is hosting Shrewsbury tonight for their Play for a Cure Pink Night, and the team participated in Making Strides for Breast Cancer Walk in Boston to raise money for cancer research. And tonight the team is raising money to be donated to the Healing Garden Cancer Support Center in Harvard. Also tonight is the youth night at the game, where our youth team in the district will be playing at halftime. Lastly, our football team is now 5-0 and hosts North Middlesex on Friday night. With a win on Friday, our team should clinch a playoff spot. In addition, Friday night is youth cheer football night at Nashoba. For the music department, this past Friday, 7th through 12th grade instrumental students from across the district participated in the 4th annual Nashoba Band Day. This was a great event, and we had close to 30 middle school students join our pep band for the football game. More than 20 members from the Florence Sawyer Chorus have been asked to sing the national anthem at the Providence Bruins game this Saturday, October 14th. They will be recognized by the Providence Bruins and be able to watch the game as well. Members of the United States Marine Corps Band will be visiting the high school to provide a performance and master class for students in our high school performing ensembles. The clinic will take place in the auditorium on Thursday, October 19th at 9 a.m. That's it.
That's it? That's it.
Good job.
So take a bow. You did a great job. Thank you very much. Does anybody, no. Does anybody have any questions? You did a fabulous job.
You did terrific.
Thank you. Okay, now you get to go. Thanks, Dad. Thanks for bringing her. You did a great job. Okay, so we have a guest presentation today from Jody Specht, who's the Director of Guidance up at the high school. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Klenski.
Sure, and I'm not sure Principal DiDomenico may want to join us as well for this. So Jody's going to present along two lines tonight. The first is kind of a classic line. It gives you a broad overview of some of the scores that have come to him and kind of benchmark it. It's my understanding that she's very often done this kind of thing, but hasn't for the past couple of years. So we're thrilled to have her back. And when she first brought the scores to me, I said, oh my gosh, yes, we've got to put these scores up right away. So our September meetings were just too full, so we're so grateful that she could come into October. And the second piece that she's going to talk about is the youth mental health first aid. And she first approached me about this, I guess in the summer, Jody, right, when we first talked about it. And to us, it felt like it fit in beautifully, it dovetailed with the work that we wanted to do with the Youth Emerson risk survey. And the work just dovetailed really beautifully. So a really nice opportunity came about. Jody's going to speak to that. She attended some professional development. Then we ended up choosing two candidates to send from our district to get qualified and trained so they could be the train-the-trainer models to push some of this work out. But I think you're going to find it really fascinating. I'm very excited about that particular initiative for us. So two very different takes that she's going to come from tonight. So Jody, we turn it over, and we thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, this was more the college readiness. I don't know why I called it that, except that I was looking at some AP scores and a college board thing. It's not really college readiness. Brooke looked at the AP scores that we have, and I'll pass around this for those of you like me who have a hard time with small print. This is the same thing as the next slide, but bigger print. These are the Nashoba scores. So these are our raw numbers. A 3 is considered a passing score and recommended by College Board that a college give credit for it, okay? Over on the right, you can see in gray, this is the total group because it is multinational, primarily a U.S. test, but it's more of a bell curve. Nashoba's goes up. And when you're looking at these numbers, these are last year's scores. We had 305 students take 584 exams. And you can see 2% were 1s, 8% were 2s, 90% are 3s and higher. Okay, so those are the percentiles over on the right.
How do we compare to the state?
Oh, you're going to see that.
Okay.
So, okay, if you'd like to look at this, and that's what I just handed out, because again, it's a great visual, it just doesn't translate for those of us who need bifocals.
It is really a wow. You need to sit and take it in.
Right.
It is a wow moment.
So what this is the total number of kids who took an AP exam and scored a 3 or higher. It's a 5-year look back. Nashoba's in blue. We're consistently in the 90s. The state's consistently in the 70s.
Low 70s.
And the low 70s, and the total group is in the 60s.
Low 60s.
Okay.
A little bit of pride there going there.
A little bit of pride, yeah.
So it's the total number. It's the number of students with at least 1, 3 or higher over the total number of students who took the exam. Okay. So then we go to the next piece, which is, this is looking at the percent of students in green by state, percent of total students who took an AP exam, okay? In red, now New England Board of Higher Ed has titled this wrong. It's not the percent of students who scored a 3 or higher of all students who took the AP exam, but of all students, okay? So basically, within Massachusetts, 45% of the kids take an AP test, and this is going to include a lot of our very selective privates, and 32% of them score a 3 or higher, okay? If we look over to the right, I wanted to look at Nashoba. In 2017, 305 kids of our roughly 1,000 took an AP exam for a participation rate of 30%, which I think is pretty good. And I looked back, and often when I do these presentations and I look back, I think to, well, when this graduating class first started in our school system, so 12 years ago, what did it look like? When these kids joined elementary school in the district, we had an 18% participation rate. So it's gone up to 30%. We still consistently score 90% or higher are scoring a 3, 4, or 5. Keeping in mind that those are the scores where you get college credit, okay? When we look at just the graduating class, we have 67% of our graduated seniors last year scored a 3 or higher on an AP exams before they graduated. And again, we've gone up. When these kids started in elementary school, that was 45% of the graduating seniors took an AP exam and scored a 3 or higher. So we've increased our participation significantly, and we've held the results steady. And for me, I like this a lot. I don't personally want AP to be your top 5% of the class. You know, I worry about AP pressure. Everybody knows that. But I like the experience of everybody getting to try out an AP class and having a great shot at a good grade to bring in for credits with them. One of the ways, not on here, that we've expanded this is working with Quinsigamond. We have an English class where kids who are not necessarily in an AP class, but this English class is dual credit with Quinsigamond. So the work they're doing in AP, the curriculum has been handheld with Quinsig. They will earn 3 credits from Quinsig as a transcript when they walk out of here. And again, it's that sense of spreading. I know that our kids go off and do great. I have kids who go off to community colleges for a variety of reasons. Maybe they've been struggling for whatever reason, and their grades don't look like your typical AP kid at a transcript. They do fabulous. So we're looking to expand these opportunities.
So I want to stop you right there and I'm gonna make some assumptions based on what you just said, and I think everybody needs to keep front and center that what Jody's saying is, we're not talking about the kids who are taking the most rigorous courses in the school, the kids who are really zeroed in on that. We're talking about the kids that are decent students that are also trying these classes out.
Yes, nearly 70% of your class.
Yeah. So what that says is, stop the madness with, everybody's focused just on this end of the spectrum. And we talked last year and the year before, Jody, when you came in, about how do we pull that through the rest of the population of the students in the grade. What you're telling us is that that's what's happening.
Yes.
I think that's really we've all got to recognize that and hold on to that, because that's a big deal.
It is, and it's one of the things I'm proud about Nashoba is that we, and it's reflected in our curriculum, it's reflected in scholarships. It's not just about the top 5% of academicians. It's about the whole kids and kids having opportunities and really being able to achieve in a lot of different levels. You look at that AP computer science course that everybody scored a 3 or higher. Nationally, that was not the way it went. First year out, we had 2 classes of it. We had a variety of kids in there, variety of math abilities. Everybody got a 3 or higher. I can't tell you the smiles that they have. Do you know what I mean? Not everybody is I certainly am not suited to do BC calculus, or physics, mechanical physics, that's kind of, but we've got those available for those hardcore academicians in those realms. But we have the breadth out there too.
And the Quincy, I just want to get a better understanding of what the Quincy Partnership Program is. What type of kid is attracted, what type of student is attracted to that program? Because I don't have my head wrapped around that.
So everybody takes a senior English, and they're done by topical choices. And we created one that embedded within it is Quincy's English Comp 101. So there I have a variety of assignments and instructional time, and we can't exceed instructional time. There's a lot of parameters around it. And our goal, we invite, it was open to everybody. So I have a couple of students who are taking it because they know that their parents have multiple kids in college and they're looking to bring in credits, but they're not AP students, AP English students. But I have other kids who don't see themselves as strong academic kids, but their teachers do. And we have pulled them in. And we have other kids who want to take the course because, ooh, that's kind of neat. So it has appealed to the kids who are not your traditional AP kids.
Well, that's really awesome.
And the teacher has really modified her instruction because, again, a college course only has a certain number of hours of instruction, and we can't exceed that. And they have certain assignments and rubrics and things like that to go on.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Neil.
Kudos. Teachers, administration, the water we drink in the 3 towns, whatever. But and not to belittle any of that. But what's the secret sauce behind that? Is it academic programming, like you were just talking about there, like people taking the coursework and creating a more challenge, robust sort of approach for the kids that draw the kids in? Is it, and I'm just trying to figure this out, because we statistically are really high here. Is it the demographics of the people that live within these 3 towns that are bringing that forward? And what can we, based on that, do to help the 30% that's still, I guess, how do we pull that through that 30% that we're missing? I know you guys are,
right?
So
I know
have
you guys
a
are,
dream.
I'm sure, working on that.
Our first conversation with this, I have a dream that we would have an English, a math, a science, and a history partnership with the community college. I don't see why we can't do Psych 101 and we can't do an environmental science, and all of that needs to be worked out, and the state is promoting the partnerships, but we'll see how things roll out with this. But I think that it's a little bit of everything. We have motivated kids, we have high expectations, we have caring teachers, we have curriculum that is meant to reach everybody. It's not one of the things, it's not just a generic senior English. Lots of schools, kids hit senior year, they take a year of Brit Lit. Our teachers design electives to appeal to the kids, to keep them writing, to keep them reading, to keep them engaged.
So if I hear you right, you're telling me there's also a change in the curriculum, the way things have been taught, say, in the past, and this is evolving, that's drawing the numbers that are keeping the percentages high.
I think Nashoba's been like this for a long time. I think we've taken a really concerted and careful look at, we know that the high achieving kids are going to find their place at Nashoba. And I think it goes back years that we have worked on being there and serving the whole population.
Very cool. Thank you.
I think it's part of the personality of Nashoba, to be honest with you.
Okay, great.
Excuse me. So, next, this is just, these are numbers people like. AP awards, these are kind of cool, and it does kind of take my breath away. The AP scholars are 3 exams or more with 3s. Honors is a 3.25 on at least 4 exams. Distinction, 3.5 on all exams with at least 5 exams. And look at that, 39 kids have an average score of at least a 3.5 on 5 or more exams. Holy cow, you know? And then the National AP Scholars, which is 8 or more exams. You know, takes my breath away, really does. National Merit is just a forever, there's always National Merit out there. This is off of the PSATs, and what they do is they, state by state, they take the top percentile, and Massachusetts has been the #1 state for many years. I've never seen it out of the top 3. So the score that you need to hit to become a National Merit commended student or semifinalist is much higher in Massachusetts than it is, say, in Arkansas or pick a lower scoring state. Pretty significantly higher. And that's going to vary year to year, and it's going to vary partly based on our pool of kids and partly on who else is in the state. But this is off of the PSAT, so it's one Saturday morning exam. But it's a good national measure. And now, because I wouldn't be guidance if I didn't talk about college applications, I know that this is the whole thing, but I'm looking at the 12-year span, and I find it interesting. We can see that application submission has gone up a little bit. From under 800 to, what are we almost hit 1,600 2 years ago, 1,500? And the accepted rate is staying roughly the same. Okay?
That just means more work for you guys.
It is definitely more work for us, and it's getting crazier because it's getting earlier and earlier.
Can I ask you something about that? Does that represent, in your guess, more applications from approximately the same number of kids, or both that and rising number of application applying individuals, or some other?
The lists have gotten bigger. Okay, so you can see 2005 we had 4.2 apps per student. Now we're at 5.6. But what's happening is that we've now, as regular terminology, we talk about financial safeties. And we talk about schools where you might get merit aid. The cost in these 12 years has gone from probably $45,000 to $60,000. I mean, the cost of private schools has gone up tremendously. So kids do have bigger lists. I used to cringe when they went over 6. Now 8, 9, 10 is not uncommon. And if a student's looking further away, geographically, they might be doing that because I want to go to Florida, I want to go to California. But that's not as common as kind of knowing that if I go out of region, I'm a more desirable candidate in the applicant pool. Okay, when you're in region, the university's getting a lot of people like you. When you're out of region, you're a little more interesting. So our kids are going to more schools. They're applying to more schools, and they're spreading out across the U.S. So this, again, I thought was interesting. These were the top 20 most applied to schools. I took a 4-year band because I don't think any one class really shows you anything. So 12 years ago, when the just graduated class started elementary school with us, that's what the most applied to profile looked like. And then when this graduating class, what their 4-year band looks like. And it's not all that different. I think that our admit rate at UMass has gone down some, but it's gotten way more competitive to get into. None of this was a huge surprise. I guess I would say I was surprised it hadn't changed as much. And when I look at the next slide, which is the most attended school, I think this explains it a little bit better for me. The lists are not all that different. If you look down at the very bottom, 12 years ago, 9 of the most attended were 4-year privates. In this past, 6 of the most attended were 4-year privates, and we have an increase in the out-of-state publics. So the flagship universities have really stepped up their game. UNH has become more of a player, stronger in business, stronger in engineering, nursing, out of this world. So our kids are looking at that, knowing that maybe they can't get into those programs at UMass because UMass is stratospheric to get into their engineering or their business programs. So they're looking at the other flagships. Those schools tend to be $10,000 to $15,000 more per year, but not $40,000 more per year. Okay, and that decrease in the number of privates in those most attended, I think it's significant to go from 9 to 6, just in a snapshot of 20 schools. So now the piece that Brooke talked about. So this is a program that is, and I have little handouts because again, I'm not great with my PowerPoints, but it's not the whole big thing. So what this is, Youth Mental Health First Aid is a program that was developed in Australia and is now in, I think, 13 countries. This July, the US hit 1 million trained adults in this. And so what it is not for everybody to become a counselor, but much as if somebody was having a heart attack or choking, people know how to provide first aid real quick. That's what this is about. And so what are the signs that might worry me? How do I assess, is this crisis or concerning? Give some encouragement to the student, or get or the youth, maybe refer to help or pull in help if it's a crisis. Okay, so Diana Durr, who's a social worker, Katie Abruzzi is a guidance counselor, and I this summer all went and we took this course. Okay, subsequent to that, Brooke approved having Katie and Diana trained as instructors. They went off for a 5-day course. They are now certified instructors in this course. And in an 8-hour training, you become certified. So what they will give us, our staff, we will get certified. It's a 3-year certification, renewable every 3 years with online courses. One of the things that impressed me about this program is that there's a boatload of research on its efficacy, all right? The results are lasting. Teaching people how to reach out to a child who's struggling, they remember it, and they're not afraid to do it. And that includes everybody in the child's life. So there are schools, and I hope we become one, where every adult in the school community takes this training. And that's the classroom teachers, that's administration, cafeteria workers, coaches, everybody takes this training, and everybody is there and knows when they see something how to then approach the child and help dice out, is this crisis or concerning, and where do we go from here, okay? There is a lot of fidelity to the curriculum on this. We're not teaching people to become counselors. A lot of the instruction is about, you're not a counselor. This is at the point where you need to pull somebody in or you need to refer. A lot of it is about helping students to recognize that maybe when it's a concerning issue and not a crisis, that they have a skill set, and how do they bring themselves down, and who can they identify as an adult that they can then speak to about this. It's just, Brooke knows I feel very passionately about this, and another dream of mine is that Nashoba becomes one of those schools where that's the expectation. And when we hire new teachers in, part of new teacher training is to become youth mental health first aid certified. It goes through, I can tell you that you go through the warning signs of a variety of issues, from depression, from self-injury, eating disorders, and the way that the instruction works, it's all role play. So they're teaching you, and then they're giving you a scenario, and Neil and I might need to decide, how are we going to approach this child, and we talk about it. And then they teach you a little more, kind of a little more serious, and then there's another role play. And so doing this, you really get to talk through how you would handle this, okay?
And for those of us who've been on the school committee and begging for it for 6 years, and thank you so much, Jody. I'm going to take questions, but I just want to put this out there. Thank you so much for the focus in the district improvement plan on social emotional learning. It has to become the fabric of the culture of the district. One of the things that I do in my private life is use this type of information for adults and work with companies, large organizations and their benefits groups, And a lot of the Fortune 100 companies are now bringing programs like this in for adults. How do you recognize the signs? So what's happening at the school level in the public schools, kind of like in a really kind of encouraging way for me, is for us to be on the forefront of this, because usually it's the corporate organization that's kind of leading things, and they're just now starting to do it. So I would love, and I know you're going to say something, I would love for us to become that flagship school. I would love for us to be able to get out into the community once our own people are trained and share it with parents and community members.
So Diana and Katie are now certified to teach anybody. So part of what Brooke and I talked about was, if I may, was offering this to community members. And so we could open this up, and interested adults in the community can be trained. This doesn't need to be just school bound. I would love to see school committee members trained. I would certainly want all of administration trained. I think that
Yeah.
Is there a specific parent component to this? Or is it they would be like people in the community?
Yep, anybody.
And-
Parents, police officers, anybody.
What about peers in the school? Is there a component for
Nope.
peers?
No, this program has a different curriculum for adult mental health first aid, and I believe there's separate versions for training, like if you want to train your whole police force. But it's first aid. It's not how to deal with things.
Right.
It's how to talk to the
triage,
child.
yeah.
Right. How do I assess, is this concerning or is it crisis? How do I listen to the student about what's really going on without trying to tell them what's going on?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Give them reassurance about other people face this. Here's some information about it. Encourage them to seek extra help, and give them referrals and support strategies. And part of this is also having resources and building up a red flags and resources kind of thing, so that it's there and available.
Neil.
So two things. I take a personal pride in the SRO over at the high school and the level of involvement that they have with the school community.
Yep.
And the professionalism and so on. I imagine they're probably going to be going through something like this if they haven't already. Go through something like this.
Our girls have just been trained.
Okay.
So
which is awesome.
yes, we
Again.
haven't. We're Joan DeAngelis and I have been trying to set up a meeting to talk about how will this break out into professional development, and that's our first step because of the scheduling of PD in the district. Anything that comes outside of that time frame is easier for us to schedule.
Sure. Thank you. The second thing is I've been around for 2 of the Emerson youth risk surveys now, and the first one bothered me. The second one bothered me even more. The most recent one, and I think this answers a lot of that social safety net that we're talking about. That component's been sort of missing, and I hugely appreciate the fact that this is being addressed. It says 12 to 18-year-olds, and
Yep.
I know that on the youth risk survey, we were talking about some of the younger kids down in 5th, 6th grade that are really falling into that risk situation. Is this something that's going to spread down to the
Well,
middle and?
I think what Jody and I talked about, and Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the notion is we'll try to be really successful with starting small and building it out. Excuse me, sorry. So I think we just want to take it a piece at a time to be successful, but I think ultimately we would love to see that become spread down.
Right, I'm like you, Neil. I want everybody who
Right.
works with our kids trained.
Yeah.
But I do understand logistically, we've got to start, and the training is I think best, they say groups 10 to 30, but it sounds like 20 is really your ideal number of people to have in the room at a time because it's such an interactive program.
Sure.
And that, cuts it down, right? Because there's how many staff members to begin with.
Sure.
So we're, again, a piece of this is we empower the adults to act, not to own. There are boundaries. We don't want everybody out there taking on kids' stuff, and that's it. One of the things that I really like about this program is that is reinforced throughout. You are not becoming a counselor, you're not becoming a therapist.
That's good, yeah.
The other piece that I put up here that I think is exciting, if you look at this map, again, we reached 1 million people in the US who are trained mental health first aiders. Massachusetts has over 11,000 people who are trained and 201 trained instructors. And it's growing. You know, you look at California has 85,000 people who are trained in this. So I just, you can see it hits across the US. I think, I was just thrilled to find this program, to be honest with you.
Susan, what do you think? I think she's a teacher, that's why I'm asking her.
So, Jody, I just want to say thank you. I mean, when you first approached me earlier this year, I told you how excited I was.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot of potential. I think it's a wonderful approach for us to be taking, and I'm so appreciative of your leadership in this and helping to support every step of the way. So thank you very much for your work with it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Jody before she leaves us? Boy, you come with some good information. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Jody.
you.
All right. Superintendent's report,
I will be quick tonight.
especially because you're going to lose your
And
voice.
we- Excuse me. I just want to speak to the Tri-Town again as well. To say that I was really proud of our staff. I was so proud of that meeting that night. We approached it a little differently. We approached the agenda a little differently, and our staff did such a great job. But what I really appreciated was staying back after for all the snacks. And we had a lovely little buffet that our food services folks have put out there. And that's the first time I've ever seen that, where we all stayed back after and visited. And I just thought that was hugely powerful. So special thanks to everyone who was involved in that. I want to mention that we had our very first town administrators meetings. You know that we did this last year. We did it quite often last year, but then we got to the point where we thought, you know what, we probably only need to do this when we need to do this. And then if we have other things that come up, then we go after that. If something in Stow comes up, we go back after meeting with that town manager rather than just waiting for the next meeting we automatically go to, so that there's no time lag of communication. What we've done this year is we set up monthly meetings for the 3 town administrators and myself. We had the first one the other day, and all 3 towns were represented at that meeting. It was a great meeting. It really was a great meeting. There were times when they go off and they start talking about stuff, quite frankly, I have no idea what they're talking about. But I learned a lot. And so it's really, it was really good. Very rich discussion, very robust. It was excellent. The advisory committee met the other night for their second time, the Nashoba Regional High School Advisory Committee. And I think our chairman, Mr. Skatsky, I think did a great job. I think what his intent right now is just to bring a lot of information to the table to make sure that everybody sitting around that table has got access to all the same information. He did a lot of really good work on the task force work. I think he seems to really have such a good handle on so much of the process and is able to bring that nice consistency there. I think it helps because Lynn also said on that. So you see that and that consistency come forward too. And there's a lot to learn for the newcomers onto our committee. And so there was a lot of information. I think there will be a lot of information to come out at the next meeting as well. But nonetheless, I just want to send out a special thank you to everybody involved in that committee. Really appreciate their time and the commitment. The last thing that I'm going to bring up tonight is just that we're working on the administrative goal setting process. So I've been meeting with all of our principals, sometimes more than once, since we're kind of working through and we do a reflection back on last year. We look at the needs of the school, we look at their own professional needs. Sometimes I'm out and about, and I'm also doing this with some of our assistant principals as well, although that's not my goal, but that is happening right now because the culture is being established that this is what we talk about, this is how we talk about it. So I've been going around. I only have one other principal left now that I'm going to meet with on a one-to-one to have this type of a discussion. But Kathy, it's basically that 5-step cycle. And the very thing that you all do with me is exactly what I'm in the process of doing. looking at the 4 standards, just like we do with the teachers. I know Mr. Feeney's at the back of the room there. So we're taking the exact same process with our principals and our assistant principals as well. So just to put that on the table. So although it's taking a little bit more meetings than I thought, I think it's very, very valuable, very, very rich conversation. So that's in a nutshell where I've been busiest in the last 2 weeks.
Any questions? Okay. So we're going to move into the new business portion of our agenda, and Anne Marie Stoika is going to, our manager of human resources, going to give us an update. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks. So we continue to work away at some of our final staffing, but I think she's going to give you kind of a general overview tonight of what our staffing in general. I'm not sure, I don't think you've got anything to I do. No, you're just going to talk it through. And I think a little bit of, some of the things that some of the realignments that we did this year, and the tweaking that we've done. I think that we're just kind of sitting back now to see if some of that tweaking has worked or if we have to do some more refinement. And she'll probably touch on that, and I'll probably swoop in and make a comment or two on that. So why don't you start, Anne Marie, and I'll jump in.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to update you on our human resources function. First thing I wanted to talk about was ASOP, our substitute calling system, because the school committee was kind enough to support that last year. When I spoke to you last year, we had just moved away from the sub-caller and into the ASOP system. We had just implemented it. We were trying to get familiar with it. Now we've got a year under our belts, so we've got some experience with it. When we compare the ASOP system to the live sub-caller, ASOP has got some nice advantages. The advantage for the teachers is that the teachers are able to set for themselves up to 5 of their top 5 substitutes. So they can pick up to 5 people that they would like to have be the people who see their vacancy before any of the other substitutes. So they get an opportunity to accept that assignment before anybody else, so that there's a little bit more consistency in the classroom, because they're more likely to get one of the people who's been in their classroom more than once. That's a good thing. The subs like the system because it's predictability. Instead of the substitute teacher, the bane of the substitute teacher is getting that call at whatever time, ungodly hour in the morning, and saying, "Can you come in?" You can't even find the telephone. They can get that if they want, but they can turn off that function and instead just go online and get their assignments that way without being called in the morning. So it's predictable. It's a little bit more respectful, I think, of their time. They can block off if they're going to go to Florida for a couple of days. They can block off that time. I'm not going to be available here. So they like that very much. Our office likes it because it automatically takes care of the Affordable Care Act requirements. It won't let a substitute teacher work more than they can and not have us have to offer them health insurance. So it will block them off in any given week when they get to the point where it would, over time, hit the requirement for us to offer them health insurance. We do make exceptions if we've got somebody that we know, like a retired teacher, for instance, that we know has got the health insurance. We have the ability on that system to remove that block off so that they can work as much as they want, because we know that they're all set. So that's great, because otherwise we would have to do that. I don't know how we would do that. We'd have to do that by hand. So I think that was a positive change. It's cost effective. We're really grateful to have it.
How's your fill rate?
Separate issue? Is that what you're going to ask to?
No, I was
Okay.
going to say.
So
So explain to people, can you explain to people what
I
the
can.
fill rate
Yes,
is
absolutely.
and what it was?
I can.
Thank you.
Separate and apart from how our subs are called, whether they're called by a live human being or whether they're called through the ASOP system, is the fill rate. And that means how many of our absences we actually get someone to come in to cover that absence. The school committee took a couple of good steps last year that helps us with that fill rate. One of them was increasing the wage that we pay to our teacher substitutes to $80 for a day, so that we're really a step ahead of a lot of the other towns, so that substitutes are coming to us. The other thing is that we didn't increase it for the instructional assistant subs, because the thought was that we would like to kind of nudge the substitutes into the teaching assignments. The thought of the committee, I believe at the time being, if someone is going to not be filled, we would rather have the instructional assistant not be filled than have the teacher not filled. As a result of this, our fill rate this year has increased by 7% over the same period last year. So that would be, because it's kind of early in the year, but we've got all of September and we've got that first week in October. So we're 7% higher. Each day, we still have an average of between 4 and 5 positions that are not filled. But that's district-wide, so that, they're not all necessarily, from the same school. And that is notwithstanding the fact that we've got a lot of professional development going on this time of year. So it's not unusual to look on the homepage, that I can see, and see that, one of the elementary schools asked for 6 substitutes for teachers that are there, but they're doing professional development. So even with that, we've still got that only 4 or 5 people each year not. Also, the push nudging the people towards the subs has helped with our sub-teacher slots are filled at an 18% higher fill rate than our instructional assistant slots. So that's a good thing. We held our annual sub-teacher recruitment / orientation event a few weeks back in the auditorium over there at Florence Sawyer. We were delighted to have 8 people come and sign up to be new subs, and then we had an additional 5 weren't able to come to that, but they walked into our office. I want to recognize with gratitude the work of Alita and Vicki and Darcy and the organization of that. They get them all signed up, they get them their badges and do all that stuff. Nurse Julie Henley from downstairs came over and she talked to them about life-threatening allergies and their responsibilities in that regard. And then Steve Grant was the star of the show. He made them teachers in 45 minutes. He talked to them about, his pitch was that substitutes, not like, I remember when I was at school, a substitute, they would sit and they would read the newspaper and we would do whatever we would do. No, not these days. The continuity instruction is something that is our goal. So he talked to them about a day in the life of a sub, what happens when you get the call, what happens when you get to the school, what do you do, how to read the lesson plans that are left by the teacher, both at the elementary, the middle, and the high school level, what to do if there are no lesson plans, how to pinch hit. He recommends that they have in their back pocket a lesson plan, an age-appropriate lesson plan for every age group that they go in, both in case that there don't happen to be lesson plans, or in case the timing is off and you end up with looking at the clock and saying, oh my God, I've got them for another 15 minutes. Let me take out that extra lesson plan. He talked to them very nicely about classroom management, about how to treat the children with respect and also keep them from hanging from the chandeliers, which I know is like what, back in the day? Yeah, back, of course I wasn't, but some of my Harvard classmates.
I wasn't.
And he gave them practical advice, buddy up with a teacher next door, find somebody, and he reassured them that the assistant principals and the principals and the other teachers would not leave them to flounder, but would have them come in. He also encouraged the new subs, which was kind of contrary to what we're hoping, but it was good advice nevertheless. If you're not sure, if you're scared off by the whole life-threatening allergy thing, the lesson plans, what are we going to do? We have to continue the instruction. He encouraged them to start off as instructional assistant subs. Take that the first couple of times and then get your feet wet and then look around and say, hey, you know what, I can do that. And then with the thinking that they would move into the teacher positions. So yeah, it's worked out well. Not a perfect system, but we're in the continuous improvement phase. We've got some couple of subs, probably less than a handful, who are a little bit resistant. They're still bypassing the ASOP system. Those are typically substitutes who they have very limited availability or want to work very specific. I want to be an art substitutes on Tuesday when there's a full moon, so that they're working outside the system, and the secretaries are very generous in accommodating them. We're trying to bring them into the fold little by little, because there are ways to do that on ASOP, so that you only do art on full moons. So that's ASOP. It's a work in progress. It's wonderful.
The only other thing I would add too is that we're able to track and run reports, and we can find information just like this now. That's very, very useful for us as we monitor this. So that's another real strength. I think
it is. Yep, a lot of nice reports. Last year, the school committee approved 4 new custodial positions for us, for which we're very grateful. And the schedule for those 4 custodians included the weekends. We did that because there are all the weekend events that were taking place at our schools to kind of try to keep the overtime down for that, provide some consistent coverage for those weekend events, and make it so our regular custodians didn't get burned out and therefore, make themselves sick or get injured, God forbid, or whatever at work from all that additional overtime. Those positions didn't start until January of next year. And really, due to the cyclical nature of our business, you really need to compare this time this year with this time last year, because, you know, the custodial work, you know, in September is different from the custodial work in June. So we don't have that comparison yet. But I can tell you, I talked to Tanya Rich and I couldn't shut her up. She was delighted at the fact that there was some weekend help at the high school for her. She said between the sports, the drama, she said she's not locking and unlocking the doors anymore. When they come in on Monday morning, the gyms are clean and ready to go for the school on Monday morning. She said, you know, so with that kind of information, she was been delighted with the, she said it's much more efficient, it's just better having those custodians. Although we don't have what we call SPLY information, same period last year information, I can see looking at the sick leave use, which we can hypothesize would be a function of whether they're getting burned out and making themselves sick. So if we take that as a given, let's see, from the routine sick leave, from the time that after the 4 new people were hired last year, the sick leave use is 20% less than it was in the 6 months before that. And if the sick leave use that we've had thus far this year continues along at the same rate, we would be on track for a reduction of another 25% of that. So it looks like that the trend for the sick leave is down if you follow the hypothesis there. Also in the custodial arena, our head custodians, who used to be islands unto themselves in their own particular buildings, they become such a nice cohesive group. They're a team. You know, they get together regularly, they talk back and forth, they have meetings together. They participated as a group in a performance improvement session to help elevate the work that their custodians do, help the custodians to do better in their practice. And we went through together a newly revised custodial employee handbook that's going to help them in that effort. That's the ASOP and that's the custodians.
A couple comments on the custodians. Some of the feedback I got this year too was that the summer work was just dealt with so much more efficiently this year because we had the extra couple of sets of hands. And they said that they were able to work faster and more efficiently with that support. The principals are telling us that they're finding that their buildings are so much cleaner, and so that there's a very dramatic improvement in the level of cleanliness around the buildings. The other thing that our custodians are telling us is that they feel that their level of productivity is substantially higher and that the morale is substantially higher. And the last thing I would say is, you kind of alluded to it quickly, but we have started professional development with our custodians, which I don't know if that's been happening. I don't think it has been. And so we're bringing in different agencies or different parts of our vendors, like PD components of those vendors, to help do a series of things. And Maya sometimes will bring stuff in and we do that. So that we involve them on a PD level that I think they haven't had before either. So I just wanted to add that. So we would say right now it's been very, very successful.
Other HR items of note, and the Navy people out there in our hail and farewell summer season, we wished a happy retirement to 5 teachers, and we brought 23 new teachers on board, and I'm happy to tell you that every single one of them is licensed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Last year we had 2 teachers who were on waivers to start the year. This year we have none, so that's good. 21 of our teachers attained professional teacher status this year. That's similar to the old concept of tenure. It's a career milestone, and it is a huge, big deal. They have to have completed 3 years at which they were at risk of being non-renewed at the end of any of those 3 years, and it didn't happen. So they met our high standards, and they get this professional teacher status. So we recognize them on the first day because that's a big deal. We're closing in on the end of an open enrollment period for life insurance, which we haven't had in, for those who have been here in many of the year. We've had our life insurance representative has gone to each school and sat in the building for a couple, 3 hours so that people could come. There's a couple of new products that they were able to sign up for, change their beneficiary if they wished, so that we're almost done with that. Next week they're going to have a last call here for anyone who for whatever reason missed it, so they can come in and talk to the rep about what their options are and make that. We have a wellness program that's offered through our insurer, Meyer. We last year offered yoga lattes and total body fitness, both which were very well received and a bumper crop. I mean, they were turning people away for these. We won the multi-district Fitbit challenge. Maya provided anyone who wanted to participate with a free Fitbit, and we tracked our progress against the other towns. We won. Every day they posted the 10 or 25, whatever it was, highest people. I never made the cut. Nevertheless, so we did better we did more steps, our employees, than the participants near Shirley, Blackstone, Millville, Dayton, Rehoboth, and Tri-Town. So we're very excited, and we won a $1,000 prize, which we're planning on using to purchase age-appropriate, wellness-related books and give them to the libraries in each of the schools. So however many books we can buy for each school, that's the plan there. Recently, although this wasn't last year, but recently, because I just have to tell you, Maya sponsored a goat yoga session over here in Bolton.
We have pictures to prove it.
We have pictures to prove it, yeah. And it was also fully booked and just a lot of fun.
It was great, I went.
Yeah. I watched.
See the big boats walking over. That's great.
And just lastly, we're gearing up to help out any of our employees who are going to be impacted by the new DESI licensure regulations. Some of them have gone into effect as of July, and some of them won't go into effect until 2019. But there's time to help them be prepared for those. And also we're helping to assist any of our employees teachers and others, who might be able to benefit from the public service loan forgiveness program. Starting in this month, in October, if you fit the criteria and your loan fits the criteria, in October you might be able to apply and get your loan forgiven because you've done the public service for the right amount of time. So we're trying to help anybody who might be even possibly eligible to that to find out if they are, and maybe maybe get that taken care of, which would be kind of fun.
School loans, right?
School, yes, yeah, not the mortgage, yeah, no. I like the way you think, Lynn, but yes. And that's the report from Human Resources. Can I stand for questions?
Well, a couple of quick things too, just so that you know.
You better not get me sick.
I
got some Purell.
Nurse leader, we've had several really good interviews, and are doing some reference checks now. So that process is coming along. The same thing with the director of facilities. We've had some really good interviews there as well, and we've got some reference checks with that as well coming along. So that's a good process. The only other thing that I would say that we wanted to bring up, just HR related, but I don't think we're looking for any detailed discussion tonight, was just it's not lost on us that the position of the assistant superintendent is lying dormant for the last couple of years, and you'll probably see that come around as we move forward into the new budget year. So I think we're just wanting to put that out there, saying we know it's just kind of been laying out there, but you'll probably see us try to reactivate that moving forward. But that'll come through more during the budget season and such than tonight. Tonight's just to say, this is a position we know that's still out there.
Why don't we update? Any questions? Anyone? Lynn, who's on Lynn first?
Well, I was just wondering, you said 5 teachers retired and 23 new ones were brought on.
Right. You're saying that the math doesn't work?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, retirement isn't the only way people leave us.
Right.
There are teachers who resign. We also took on the class connections and the early risers, new positions.
New SPED programs.
New SPED programs, each needed new teachers, and then the 2 part-time kindergarten programs, two of the part-time kindergarten programs needed instructors as well. One of them, one of the current kindergarten teachers, moved into the part-time. So between the retirements, the resignations, and those new positions, the math works.
So do we have an increase of teachers from last year to this year?
Well, we do. We would have those two, the class connections and the
2 SPED.
and the 2 SPED.
Yeah.
Then we have the 2 part-time kindies, so that's 4. And then, do we have an additional, I want to say a social worker? I'm not sure. Was there one other? I want to say that there was one other, but it's not good.
But for teachers,
So-
I was asking for teachers.
Oh,
so
okay.
we just,
But
Right.
the 4 that we knew about, that we
right,
approved.
it's all the ones that you've
Oh,
approved.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yep, no, sorry.
Okay. Great. Neil?
Mine's just a few clarification questions on the sub process. So when you say that you need to have a lesson plan as a sub, it's recommended, I'm assuming that most of the sub positions are going to be starting from the younger grades filled, they'll be backfilled first before you get to the high school, and then high school would be more likely to have like a study or something? Or do they need to have, where I'm going with this is, do they need to have 5 different lesson plans in their back pockets depending upon the course-specific placement?
I would if I was a sub, I'll tell you, because I wouldn't
Okay.
want to go in without one. But the more common occurrence is that the teachers have lesson plans ready for their substitutes at each level if they're absent, or even if just ready for the next day. And sometimes, if it's not the case, that morning the teacher will email or fax the lesson plan to the office, and they bring it down to the sub teacher, so they've got the lesson plan. That's like a plan B, you know,
Okay.
the
Sure.
lesson plan in the back pocket. Yeah.
The only other question I had was the subs, are they eval'd at the end of the year? Like,
We don't evaluate our substitutes. The principals, of course, you know, keep their eyes open, and occasionally the principal will call and say, you know, yeah, not so much on this sub. Or, and I think this year, I think we hired as permanent teachers some people who had been substitutes, and I know that a couple of our teachers who had been with us for several years started out as substitutes. Oftentimes that's the long-term sub, but yes, that's. See, the Commonwealth pumps out a lot more. Let's just take elementary general ed 1 through 6. A lot of students graduate with that license each year, and there just aren't that many jobs. Oftentimes, those people will take the substitute jobs, and then they get their foot in the door, and they become known. They get experience, they go someplace else. They become known to the principal, and and sometimes it turns into employment. But
Yeah, Mary, I think ASAP, the function of ASAP allows the teacher to give feedback about a sub.
yes,
I don't know how
they
many
do.
take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it also lets the sub leave feedback for the teacher. So that there's an opportunity for communication back and forth.
I know it sounds crazy, but I was just wondering if there's feedback from the student's perspective on the sub.
I think that would vary by the level.
Having
and
kids
by
in the
the
district, I mean,
yeah.
I've had some pretty interesting stories over the years, you know, of some colorful scenarios that I'm not sure have made it necessarily to people that should hear about it.
Yeah.
So but I know that's kind of silly, maybe having the kids do it, but
Well, I mean, it's probably not silly, but I think it's more of an informal, I
Sure.
think that the students would come forward at that point. I don't think that there's anything, and I could be wrong about it, but I don't think there's anything formal in place for that.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much.
Very well,
Appreciate
very well.
that.
Thanks, Emery.
We're going to move quickly to policy AAA, school committee bylaws. And Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm assuming that everybody's read through it. I have a bunch of questions. So, does anybody have questions on this policy?
It was revised last year.
It was.
Okay.
But I think with the concerted focus on all of the policies, and we're not distracted this year, I think it's a good time for us to review again. I'm just going to throw out a couple of things unless someone else has anything that they noticed. On the first page, Section 3, Article 2, Section 3, Article 2, Section 5. So I noticed that the school committee shall select and terminate the superintendent, which we know. That's in Section 2. In Section 3, the school committee may award a contract to a business administrator. In Section 4, the school committee shall appoint one or more school physicians and registered nurses. In Section 5, the school committee may establish and appoint positions of assistant or associate superintendents. And Section 6, the school committee shall appoint an administrator of special education. And my issue with these back and forths is the budget is one of our main and most important requirements. If we shall appoint a school physician, why should we not shall appoint a business manager? Now, that would be under the recommendation from the superintendent.
I think the shall it's the school committee's authority to appoint rather than the superintendent's. The superintendent brings it to the school committee says yes or no, that's the shall.
is it not just based off Mass General Law?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just the
Yeah.
same language that Mass General Law has,
Right.
that's all that is.
So, all right.
So it's just about who has the authority. That's,
Yeah.
that's what the shall is about.
No, I understand that. It just seems strange to me that we, oh, you're saying for both 3 and 5.
It's basically-
No, I know. But you're saying for both 3 and 5.
I'm not sure what your question is.
I guess my point is, as a school committee member, I want, and present company excluded, I want the appointment for a business manager, and I want the appointment for an assistant superintendent, if there is one, to come before the school committee, for the school committee to approve.
I see.
Versus,
So you wanted to say, if there is such a position, then the school committee shall
yeah, I do.
approve.
But I need to know what you guys think, and Brooke is sitting here like a deer in the headlights. But again, let's go back to what's our responsibility: hiring the superintendent, approving the budget, and the policies. So we're not going to do it tonight. I think you guys need to think about it. I'm saying we got the may and the shalls.
I think the may and the shall is that the statute was written recognizing that some districts don't even have a position. But if they choose to have a position, then they may appoint such a person.
But I don't think that I think that the responsibility and the onus should be on the school committee. Thoughts? Kathy?
Would it make sense to check with Dorothy and see what her take is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This actually went around on the MASC email list in the last month. Someone was asking, what's our authority? And these are all listed as in the authority of the school committee to
Right.
And if it
approve
is the,
contracts.
and if it is the authority of the school committee by writing the may, you take it away from the school committee.
Well, you're just not holding the school committee accountable, and I think we need to be held accountable, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could find out from Dorothy and then come back.
Yeah.
So I see this as a very fine line, right? Because I think one of my aha moments is the whole administration versus school committee division, right? And it's, Brooke right now is the superintendent. It's her organization to put together, to lead, and to succeed or fail based on her experience and her knowledge. And that means she needs to have the leeway to create the organization as she sees fit.
Right, this wouldn't take that
If we create
away.
the organization, right, that's the fine line I'm talking about. If we dictate in certain terms that are unclear, it then turns into this
I don't think that's what
opportunity.
this is, though. I think what this is the superintendent would still be the one to go out, do the work, find the person that she would like and bring it to the school committee, but that the school committee needs to approve. Let's harken back to 2 years ago.
I was just thinking that.
Right, so where I'm going with this is at the, something to the language of at the superintendent's request, the position shall be approved, but it's really up to the superintendent to do the hiring of that individual. So you budgetarily would come to us and say, hey, I've got a position that I'd like to put in there, and will you approve that position because it's going to have budgetary implications? And we say, yeah, we approve the position, and now it's up to her to actually do the hiring to fill that
Okay,
position.
we're gonna
It's, well, I mean, the section, sorry, this is teeny tiny. Section 5 is, that's verbatim from MGL.
Right.
So I don't know, I'll ask Dorothy, but I suspect that I don't know how that we can play with that language. Unless we add to it another sentence or two that clarifies that that's just specific to Nashoba. But I think that language needs to be in there because
That's my
not
first reaction
general.
to it too.
I mean, I have section 5 here. Section 41 is a little lengthier, so I had trouble finding that specific spot of it.
So
but
can you ask her,
Yep.
and Kathy, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think the issue is, has to do with the contract and the policies that give the school committee the authority to approve the creation of positions and the job descriptions, and also to set the salary level. There is, when we had a training with Dorothy, one of the things we talked about were contracts, especially non-union contracts, where the school committee has a say in what goes into those contracts, and anything that is extraordinary should be approved by the school committee. And I think when Lorraine was referring to a couple of years ago, there were some issues around that. And I think that, and I don't know how we frame it or how it goes into bylaws or where to put it, but I feel strongly that the school committee, for non-union positions, needs to be able to prove what is in these contracts, given some of the things that were put in previous contracts. So I don't know if that's in our bylaws or it's in policy, but I mean, for me, that's the concern.
Okay. So I think if you could find out from Dorothy and hear what you're saying, I just feel strongly that business manager is the one who is creating the budget. And the school committee owns that budget as soon as we adopt it. So there should be, if it's perfunctory, that's fine, but there should be, I mean, an approval process where, and I know what Mass General Law says, I say, because you guys, you school committee people, you need to make sure that you approve these people, but I just don't know that the language in here is consistent with what I've seen. So if we could find out from Dorothy. And the same thing with the assistant superintendent. The assistant superintendent is the guy or gal in the absence of the superintendent. So why would we as a school committee, or why would any, forget about the people in the seats right now, but why would any school committee know that their responsibility is hiring the superintendent but not the assistant superintendent? We went down this road in a very ugly way 2 years ago, so let's not recreate that wheel. So I don't know that we need to have much more.
Yeah, I don't see it as, I'm not arguing something different from what you're saying, or taking a different point. What I'm saying is, the position itself, I get that the salary range, right? So Brooke might come and say, hey, we're looking to add this thing to the budget, sort of like what had happened before at the high school to add.
We're not selecting the person.
That's exactly right. So the individual, that's up to Brooke to hire the individual.
Yeah, but that
the
goes without
contract,
saying.
the contract, I
Right.
agree with the contract so that there aren't any, it has nothing to do with you. But the past experience that we had, where there's some very interesting, non-typical flavors that burned the district, as you know, very well, to the tune of quite a lot of money. And I don't think anyone that's been involved with that ever wants to come near that. So there is that fine line that we have to draw, that we can still have that, we can respect the towns and what we're doing on the budget, but still respect the job that you're doing, right?
So, yeah, and Lynn.
I'm just wondering, from what Kathy said, are we talking about, Kathy, you might be able to, can I give you the renewal? Because we every time a renewal happens,
That's a new
a
contract.
new contract.
Yes,
So is that defined?
it is in law, in Mass General Law, it is defined, but it was not visible to us in previous years. Now, the other thing about the contract is that anything, any perk, if you will, aside from salary, that has budget impact, and most of them did, would have to have school committee approval because of the impact to the budget. But again,
And that's
not visible to us.
Well, I think that's what we need to know, is I think by, what Kathy's saying, what Neil's saying, what Brooke's saying, what I'm saying is, we just kind of need to get that clarified, and we do set the salary ranges, and then Brooke does what she needs to do within those. Pardon?
And the perks.
And any extras, which
Benefits,
there are very few now. So Susan, if you could do that, and we'll put that on the next agenda, if that makes sense for everybody. Because that's the one piece on here that I was concerned about.
There are just a couple of little typographical
Oh,
things
yeah.
that I'll go through and I deleted, and I can take a look at that and just a little bit of rearranging on some things to bring some better consistency to it. And then also on page 4 of 13, under clerk, section number 2, A. It says preparing, filing, and binding. We don't do that anymore, so we would just look at just some cleanup verbiage on that, just housekeeping verbiage.
Oh, so if you guys, yeah, get that to Alita so she can
Yeah.
get that to Susan to mark up.
Yeah.
Because you're
So
right, it's
you'll-
all
you will
electronic
email
now.
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
wanted to say.
It's all posted. and
Yeah,
stuff.
we don't bind books.
Yeah, we
No,
don't
I
buy
know,
books.
What'd you say?
We don't bind books anymore.
No, we don't. We don't waste that money. Okay. Anything else on these, Kathy?
Yeah, there was
Oh,
something,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, there was, I can't find it now. It has something to do, oh yeah, with the relationship with the superintendent and staff. So the school committee, in section 1, shall consult whenever possible with the superintendent's business manager, etc. That's school committee as a whole, through the chair. I just want to,
What section is it?
this is Article 23, Section 1. It is page 12 of 13. And then, so Sections 1 and 2, just for clarity's sake, and this has come up in the manual as well in terms of communication with the superintendent of the public school committee. Just to be clear that requests for public information from the superintendent or her staff, his staff, shall be made by and through the chairperson of the school committee. And then it says, or said subcommittee. I would like to see it just
Yeah, I saw that.
say, made through the chair of the school committee. And my assumption would be that the chair of the subcommittee would work through the chair to get the information, but I just think that needs to be clarified there.
So eliminate or said subcommittee.
I would just put period, and I think that's what we did in the manual, yes.
Okay. I had, are you?
And I'll just say, I don't necessarily agree with that point of view. Maybe the lone person on that, but you end up slowing your organization down when you have to hop through lots of people.
And the only person you have to hop through is the chair.
How slow is that?
It all depends.
On the chair.
Whether you agree or not.
Right, Susan?
So I just had a couple of quick, in Article 3, Section 6.
What page, Susan?
Sorry, 2 of 13.
Okay.
I wondered if that was in this, I guess I could have looked, sorry, in the school committee manual, or if that would be, it says new members shall be given access. Are they given access to the policies, the ed reform law, to the regional agreement and leases?
That'll be in
Budget,
the,
all of that will be.
Everything
Yes.
is in the packet or online?
Yeah, okay, cool. And then on page 5 of 13,
Yeah.
Article 8, Section 1 says that the school committee shall hold its annual organizational meeting within 10 days of the annual town
Yes,
elections.
yes, we do that.
Okay, we did do that this,
Yeah.
okay. So that wasn't what we did in the fall.
In the spring.
Oh, we did it in the spring with the subcommittees were, oh yeah, we were, okay, gotcha. So that's the 10 days, all right, check. And then,
It's
sorry.
the school committee, not the
Yep.
subcommittees.
Yeah, and then, oh, you had a question about emergency meetings.
Where is that?
That's section 3, Article 9, section 3. You had sent something about,
My gosh, now I gotta try to remember, except,
except in an emergency, a notice of every meeting of school committee shall be posted on the district website at least 48 hours.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
No, there isn't. I think
Maybe
you
it
had
was
read
the
it something
previous
differently.
version, because there was a different, wasn't
No,
there?
I think it was
Mark,
this one, but you were worried about executive sessions. But I looked into that.
Oh.
And it's fine. If it's an emergency, then it's just as soon as reasonably possible is
Right.
what it says. Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
And then, so this Article 11, I just had starred because in order for us to approve the amendment to the bylaws, it just so we know about the timeline.
I underlined that.
We
yeah.
I have to like make the changes to this, then bring them to you. Then we have to agree the following time. So it's like 3 separate meetings. So I'll try and get the answer from Dorothy and do all of the changes that are suggested tonight once I get the email from Alita, so that the next time we can say, yes, this is the version we want to vote on the next time.
All right, so,
Does that make
so
sense?
for the next meeting, then, we're gonna have to add an agenda item on the review.
Just review the
Proposed
changes and then decide whether we want to vote on the amendments for the following meeting or a future meeting. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Okay.
and Neil, you have.
Yeah,
a question?
Article
Oh,
6,
sorry.
Section 1. So the treasurer shall be a member of the school committee. That goes pre-receivership, that statement, unless it's MGL.
It's a statute.
Yeah.
But then it also says
It
unless
says-
the treasurer's, unless.
Right, so my
Yeah.
recommendation would be that we appoint a manager, like strike the school committee portion, but I didn't know if that was
I
MGL.
don't know that we can.
That's what I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if it was
There's no
MGL.
MGL reference there, so.
No,
No,
there
there
isn't, that's
isn't.
why I was wondering.
Yeah, it is the statute. It could be a school committee member, but we choose never to do that.
Right.
And that's actually
We
what
do,
the bylaw says.
we do appoint, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
So it says we could do either, or you're saying we should
I was just,
give the first
I was just
option.
saying if we could, just to strike that it shall be a school committee member,
Okay.
because,
Unless the school committee should choose.
and just having the school committee shall choose
Maybe
to
that
either
one, I
appoint
mean,
the
yeah,
business manager.
That was one that we
Or
did
hire a
discuss.
treasurer.
Dorothy had mentioned that, because she was worried that we hadn't appointed anyone
But
as
we do.
treasurer, but we do. She was just concerned, she wanted to make sure that
But
was
we
the
don't
fact.
formally
No, right,
appoint,
yeah.
so that is a
Yeah.
concern
Okay.
too. So it's either, we gotta find out if it's a regulatory thing, and if not, maybe the treasurer maybe, or, because I don't wanna take away control from future school committees that may feel strongly that they wanna do that. I mean, but I guess that's another one, what?
Okay,
Well, I don't wanna,
okay.
it's really up to find out from Dorothy and see
Sure.
what she comes back with, and then
Okay.
Neil, we can see what what's the matter, you don't like that?
No, I don't. I think that's Arnold the Pig in Hooterville. I mean, if you're gonna
That's
have.
what?
There's a
What did you just say?
Said it's Arnold the
Alright,
Pig
Green
in
Acres
Hooterville.
reference, but I mean, it's a little backwards to be having a school committee member, paying the bills, handling the accounts.
Oh,
and
I
so
don't think
forth.
so either,
think-
but that's.
I just don't like the potential check and balance that takes away, but that's okay. It's just me.
So you're saying we don't formally appoint the business manager as
We don't,
treasurer?
this
No,
says,
we appoint somebody else as the treasurer and the business manager.
but we don't actively appoint someone.
But we do as a district, and we have an appointment in Vicky Chartier, right? She is the appointed
Yes, she's the
treasurer for the
appointed
school
treasurer.
district.
Right, so each year, according to this, as I see it, we should be reappointing her, just as an official.
I think that's
my point,
basically
yeah.
what it is.
Well, when
But
we
it's not
review her
school committee.
contract, in her contract, which is a yearly
It's a
renewal.
stipended position, am I right?
No.
Vicky? No, okay.
That's her job.
So should I ask if it should be done annually?
Well, just ask her to give us some direction.
Yeah, I think that's all we're looking for.
We need
So we'll do whatever she tells us to do?
No, we have to, we'll
discuss
take it
it.
under
Okay.
advisement.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
Discuss it and then make a decision, I think.
Okay.
But that was one of the ones I had to start by, so whoever brought, that was Neil, right?
So the statute says, shall appoint a secretary and a treasurer who may or need not be a member of the committee.
Because
So
we
it's
as a
kind of
subcommittee
straight out
had
of the statute.
discussed it with Brooke already, and I thought we were all set, but, okay.
So what would be helpful is with all these questions that we have, if you could bring some suggested language
Yes,
forward and then we can,
yeah. Can I just, there was just, just one more thing.
Go ahead.
It was- wait a minute. It was
Whoville.
your suggestion to,
Hooterville, not Hooterville.
what do you call it?
Hooterville.
Does that
Just
just
green.
That just
Acres.
doesn't sound right.
You
But
know,
Hooterville
That's
is
so
so
young.
young. She's
She's
just
Okay,
too
but
young
it's
to
just like-
remember.
She's
We're
Bill is a
reaching young,
different world for
yeah.
me, but go ahead.
you had suggested adding on page 6 of page 6, Article 12, adding section 4 underneath section 3, which talks about the annual audit of the district finances, adding the forensic audit there.
Oh, yes!
Instead of the,
Thank you, guys, do you, okay.
instead of creating a policy that states every 3 to 5 years, if we put it in the bylaws as section 4, a forensic audit of the district's finances shall be performed every 3 to 5 years. Is that something?
I'm okay with it being in the policies.
Policy, not bylaws.
Yeah.
get,
I think it belongs in the policy.
yeah, I'm okay with being
I
in
do
the
too.
policies too.
So
What do
you
you guys
don't
think?
want that added.
Yeah, I think it's fine in the policies.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an audit section in the policies, and it
Right.
should really be worked into that.
Right,
you
right.
know.
I'm good with that. Thank you, Sue.
No. Okay. And then, I'm sorry, one.
Look at Susan getting it all done.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought this was kind of funny.
Oh, better not be mine.
Yeah.
Don't bring it up if it is.
There was two questions that I had, and it could just be maybe because I'm a newer member, but so this page 9, Article 19, Section 1, where it says we shall not conduct new business. Okay, after 3 hours from the start of the meeting.
Oh, right, and then,
I thought that
I
was
know,
funny.
it's funky
But
because
that's no
then
new business.
in
Okay.
section 3, it's like, but if they don't
Yeah.
notice it, it's
Yeah.
okay.
And
It's like
then-
so silly, yeah.
And then I don't know if this needs to be changed because I don't know of how many advisory committees have been composed of more than on page 11. Article 21, Section 1 says advisory committees are made up entirely or largely of non-school committee members.
Yeah, I like that one.
But is that common practice?
Yep.
Okay, great. I just didn't
By
know if that's
definition.
something that we're, okay, very.
But
Like
it's certainly possible we could have an advisory committee with just one citizen. So, I mean, there may be an occasion in which we just want 1 or 2 citizens and we have 2 school committee members. We may not want to be limited in that way.
Largely is a pretty,
I mean,
it's pretty
mainly
broad
an advisory
language,
committee
but-
has a citizen and subcommittee has only school committee members. That's the real distinction.
Right.
And I don't know, do we really need to limit it to largely?
I just didn't know if that's
I
what's
think the
happening, and if
intent-
it is, then that's.
And this may be another question for Dorothy, but I think the intent of this is to bring the community into the work of the school committee, but I don't know how the rest of you feel. I don't have a problem with it. Mark is,
I'm fine
got
with
a
the community
point on the
members. I just
floor.
didn't know if we ever got closer to half and half. Like, okay, all right. I just didn't know.
But no, audit advisory.
audit advisory.
Yeah,
That's only
I'm a
one.
minority.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have 3 citizens and a school committee member. So that follows actually.
Yeah, it's small.
Yeah. And so does the advisory right now for the high school.
Okay. That's it.
We got through that one. That was a surprise.
I'm so thrilled. Other people are reading the bylaws.
Well, there you go. Would you like to see the notes? All right, moving on. Budget timeline, Pat Maroney, our business manager. Thank you, Susan.
Slash treasurer.
Slash what?
Slash treasurer.
No, she's
No,
not.
she's
No, I'm
not.
not sure.
I know she
That would be a conflict of interest. So I bring before you the fiscal year 19 Nashoba budget timeline. We started this process already in August, just before our retreat. And this is what I would bring forward to you, and if you have any questions.
Just give a quick broad overview, like of each month.
Sure.
Just a snapshot.
Okay,
Just
so
snapshot.
basically this week we're looking for, what I did first was I sent out information on expenditures for last year so that they could see what happened, what they can do better when they're building their new budget. This week we have some staffing requests from all the schools and departments due. And we're starting to build the documents now, you know, as far as, once we start getting in this data, we're going to start building the documents. For November, we're looking for the site-based non-salary budgets, from teaching and learning, all the schools, food services, extended day, athletics, and capital requests for all sites. In December, we're looking for technology capital needs, facilities, capital plan for the high school completed, and drafts to the towns for their capital. So at that point, we should have something ready so that we can present to them you know, what our needs are
So,
going to be. in
so
the
there's a
buildings.
little bit of a, you gotta correct me here, because on this calendar, we have the capital plan update in November, which works for us and for the towns, but then in December, you've got the capital plan for the high school, which means that's gonna miss the capital, although in November it says capital requests all sites, so
So I'm compiling the information. These are the deadlines that I've put out to all the different departments. They need to start to bring this information to me by these dates. In December, I will have all of this information compiled.
But I think what Lorraine's talking about is the timeline that she set for school committee.
with you.
She has a calendar, yeah.
Yeah.
She's a calendar, and to be honest with you, everything aligns except this one thing.
Oh,
Is
okay.
what we're saying.
Right, so we gotta resolve
So we'll
that.
have to resolve
Okay,
that,
so we
that's
can
all.
do that.
Because everything else is gonna be brought up, like the food services and all that other stuff is gonna be brought forward in a timely fashion. This capital item is the only one that's kind of.
All right, and I'm gonna throw this out here before we get into a spiral on it, but I noticed in December that we've got the technology budget and the technology capital and needs, and we've got a technology committee. If it hasn't met, it needs to meet. You've got people on the school committee who are chomping at the bit. I would hope that that technology committee would somehow get some discussion on what the vision is, what the work is for the year before a budget comes forward to the school committee for technology. Is that where you guys were going? No.
Well, that was one of the places that I was going.
I can do a quick check on that
Yeah.
tomorrow. so.
And that's not like, yeah. The question I have is like, what you're reporting there, Pat, thank you for doing this. It's refreshing, I think, actually. It is.
It's sort of the.
When you have December, technology budget and so forth, is that the time that you're doing the report? Is this that we're going to take, is this your internal steps? Or is
Yes.
this when we are going to see as far as the technology budget, you know what I mean? So things as they're being sort of reported out to us, rather, you know, sort of working the way down through as the sausage is being made.
Yeah.
Is December, you know, so December 15th, is that when everything's ready for us to actually take a look and say, okay, well, technology budget is proposed to be this, capital planning is proposed to be this, or is that the time that you're receiving it from all the different departments, and then you're compiling it, and that information will be ready at a later date?
Well, my thought was that this was our internal. This information would be all prepared, ready for the superintendent to review, and then we would then pick a date to present it to you.
Okay. So that, to me, on the school committee, that's the more important thing, is when are we going to actually be seeing that, not necessarily where you guys.
And I think when we had talked about the earlier dates, like food services and that kind of thing, you know, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the notion is that those folks would come and kind of report out, okay, here's where we were at last year, this is what we're looking at, this is our vision for this year, but without specific numbers. But if there was another major thing that somebody needed, which quite frankly, I don't know that I see that right now, but you know, for food services, for example, they could generate reports now, so you can take a look at that and say, so that's what would come to you folks in that whenever they're coming up next. I'm not sure when it is.
They're coming up next week, next meeting.
Next meeting. So they would speak to you about that kind of thing, but their actual budget piece wouldn't be ready until probably mid-December, so that you would have it.
So, and that brings up a good point, because here we have January 15th for the full budget, but in December, on December 6th, we're slated to see the preliminary full budget.
I know that we have that here. I don't know if we can hit that date or not. I don't know, we might be able to.
So, yeah.
So we just need to align the internal with the actual report.
Got
of the
it.
school committee.
I think what we were trying to avoid this year was getting the budget at the end of January again.
Right.
And I think that's, well, I didn't put December 6th there, sister, so, I mean, we gotta get a little bit, if there's any way to get a little bit closer to that early December timeframe, because again, we don't, you know, there's so much good work being done now, and I know that you're gonna be bringing people forward to share kind of where they are, similar to what Anne Marie did today.
Right.
You know, what's happened, you know, what are some of the issues, and what are some of the upcoming things that you see are going to be happening for FY19. But I think if there's a way to get that budget to us before January 1, it will be very valuable, not just to the school committee, but to the community.
Now, are you thinking too, just for clarification purposes, are you thinking that we would have our first, like, because I thought that you probably would want to take the similar process to what we did last year, like that Saturday day, right? And go through, did you want to take that same process?
All I know is when you and I sat down, it was early January. That was the date that was given. So I don't care at this point if it's a Saturday or not. I'm just looking, I mean, we can figure out what that actual date is at that, you know, when we have time to do that. All I'm saying is, rather than waiting till end of January, is there a way to get us this budget earlier so that we have time to go through it and spend?
I don't think we were thinking end of January this year. That's not where we were at all. That's like, she got the January 15th type thing, but.
Okay, it's 2 weeks, but.
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. I still want to know though, is that the process that you want to take? Because that does make a difference for us. Like on a Saturday, sit down.
Well, we haven't even talked about that. I mean,
No, I know, I'm moving on.
we could dovetail into that. Do you want to do another, for the rollout presentation of the budget, do you want to do another Saturday meeting?
I think we have, my opinion is we have to have a dedicated
Meeting.
block of time for it. And I don't mind doing a Saturday meeting for that, you know, so when you're.
How do you folks feel? You good with that,
It
Mark?
just makes me nervous to just ship it out electronically to you without any.
No. I mean,
No,
that's all, but that's all kind
I
of,
appreciate
not to
it.
be disrespectful to the minutia of it. I just want to get us to a point where we're like, when are we going to get it? And then we can get into how is it going to be received and the details of the logistics of it.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, for our planning purposes, we kind of need to know.
Okay, so you guys want to do it on a Saturday?
Yeah, I'm good. Personally, I'm fine on a Saturday. I thought the workshop was very good.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it because it gave the opportunity for each stakeholder to make their presentation, and then for us to actually ask some pertinent questions about that, and then have this dialogue. And I thought that was healthy.
Yeah, that's
to
good.
be able to do that.
So if everybody's in agreement, then Saturday is fine. But again, there's a disconnect. I just want to resolve the disconnect from January 15th to early December. We need to resolve that. So
Switching gears, December 15th is when she's going to get in the capital plan for the high school, but we're supposed to do a go, no-go for December 6th. So I would think we would need that earlier, because that might play into.
it's
It's a go, no-go for the SOI.
actually, that's
I
a
didn't
good
think of
point.
that. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I did think about that actually, and I am planning to go with as if no, only because I don't want to be caught without the information that I need to move forward, if that in fact does happen.
We still need the information.
It's going to be a process. We'll have to figure it out as we get closer to understanding what the recommendation is.
Well, fill me in. How does that have to do with anything? I mean, and I'm not being sarcastic.
No, that's fine. With the SOI,
Yeah.
we have to keep in mind that even though there are certain capital projects that we just can't avoid.
Right.
So whether we put the SOI in or not,
Right.
it's going to happen.
Right.
So,
So
without the information, knowing what capital projects they're planning on doing that are coming up,
Right.
it's a little hard to move in one direction or the next.
So it could be a placeholder
Yeah.
that may or may not be necessary. What's the matter, Steve? You're saying no.
No, I'm just thinking that the decision on to go forward with the SOI, first of all, we're looking at two significantly different timeframes. The capital expenses for the high school would be more current in the next year, including the next budget. The yes or no for the SOI, which is really only step one for anything we do in the future, is really talking about a longer time period moving out. And therefore, I'm not necessarily sure that the capital expenses for the high school for the next year or even 2 years are apropos or really have a whole lot of relevance in the decision
FY19.
of looking into, you know, the SOI.
Well, we'll use wastewater treatment plant as an example. I mean, we've got the wastewater treatment plant, so if it's a no-go.
Well, the septic system.
Yeah, septic. If it's a no-go, then, yeah, you definitely have to do that, and it's a rush job. But if it's a go, that will get worked into the feasibility study and the work that's happening with the school. So why spend all that money if it's going to be worked into a new project?
That's an unknown, because the part of what I know Jeff was looking into was to see if the DER or DEP, whichever organization would allow the reuse of whatever we do. In other words, a new building to be hooked up to that, and then the old building disconnected if there was a new building or whatever that was done.
Oh my God, what are we talking
No,
about?
no, no. She's talking about the septic. So if you have to put all this money in the septic and it can't go out for multiple years, again, where Steve is, it has no bearing, I think, on.
But the site is so restricted. I mean, we don't have a heck of a lot of space.
Right, but that's not part of
Okay,
this
but now,
conversation.
so let's go back to what are we talking about here, guys?
It could be.
So what are we talking about? So let's get back on track, because I hear what you're saying.
Capital planner.
But I think what Pat said is that she's gonna be looking at some of those ranges too. Yeah, we just gotta make sure that things that don't need to be hardwired into that budget, that don't happen, don't stay in that budget and artificially inflate it.
Right.
That's the only thing, and I'm not questioning you, I'm just saying we all need to be kind of cognizant of what are you shoving in there as placeholders and.
Right, I mean, it wouldn't be realistic if we know that the project is going to go forward and to put a 5-year plan out on that building.
But we won't know, right? I mean, with the timing of all this, that's the issue, is we won't know.
So you have to assume where Pat's going, that it's a no answer, and that you have to
Right,
move
and
forward
that's
based
exactly
on
what she
that.
said.
Right.
That's
But
exactly what
it's-
she said.
But it would be beneficial for the group to know that there are some things that.
There would be a capital plan, a 5-year capital plan, so
I
it
think
would be
Pat's
spelled
gonna
out
do
right
that.
I'm
there
not going to
for
see it until
Pat.
after the 6th, and the go-no-go is the 6th.
Well, we have a 5-year capital plan. for the next
Okay,
year.
we're gonna, Pat, you're gonna work it into the budget and asterisks for us, or whatever you're gonna do, so that
Sure.
we know that those are items that we need to be aware of. And we'll have to talk about it when we get there, Mark, what?
So I have a question on the town buildings for capital plan. Maybe it's just the way it happened to be phrased in your calendar, where it says you're going out to the towns. And I wonder if you meant they'll see stuff before the school committee does, or you'll be asking towns, or just wondering what you intend.
I think that just happens regularly all the time. You don't like that.
Right,
That happens regularly all the time anyway right now with with the 3 town administrators meeting
Got it.
together, right? So I think that's just kind of saying this is ongoing, you know, whether it's,
Oh.
If there's something on the radar.
something on the radar, like the heating system, like the
So
boiler
here's the reason
system.
why I ask. For the last several years, I've been asked by my finance committee, what's going to happen, what's going to be proposed to us for fixing our own buildings? And I say, I don't know, I haven't seen it, and I have never seen it until March or April. And I would prefer to not be in that position, so that we don't know what's being talked to about at the town level, just so that we're informed just as well as the administrators are about what's likely to come.
We've got a capital
that's
plan
kind of my
update
motivation on
scheduled
that
for
question.
early November.
Well, and actually, you know, Pat and I were talking about the capital plan even today,
Yeah.
and saying that has to be a priority for us to pull together.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's not like you've got 100 different projects.
No, it's like
listed
3
right now.
per town or
Is
something.
it a couple per town? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So-
Right, and part of the process is I meet with them, we discuss, you know, what the project is and whether or not they think that it's appropriate to move forward with it before I'd even put it on a capital plan.
Right. My sensitivity is actually from previous administration who wouldn't tell anybody anything. So I just
No, I
just
understand
trying to
that.
figure out a way that
Okay,
works for
and I'm
everybody.
gonna interrupt you guys for 1 second, because again, I'm confused as to why the capital plan update is in November. And now we're talking about it at another point. I mean, maybe there's something,
So can we just sync this and then revisit the timeline?
wait a second, yeah. So
Are you talking about
this
the last item?
calendar needs to reflect
Yeah.
what we talked about. This calendar needs to dovetail with this.
Yeah,
This
It's also
hasn't been
calendar.
vetted, so I think you guys need to,
go back and do a quick revisit on a couple of those items.
because if any of the dates on this need to change, then we need to be made aware of that. We need to talk about it, and now our town officials need to know because they have received this.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant to move some things around on here based on the agreements that we've already had, unless there's a real good reason to do
I
it.
get that totally.
Yeah,
We'll go back and do a quick revisit on one or two of those
Awesome.
items.
are we good? Well, we will be. Okay. Pat, thank you. You're like, what the heck just
What was that fun?
Yeah.
Get the microphone away from us.
For old business, Hale Activities Fund breakdown, I'm gonna pass this on to you.
Okay, so at the last meeting, Kathy, you had questioned why the balance in the athletic revolving fund at Hale School had grown to this number of $47,000. And what I did was, if you pull up the sheet, do you have it up there? You can see that over the years, it started to grow. Initially, I have detail back to 2005. You can see that there was spending every year out of the revolving account. And then you get up to about 2009, and we didn't spend anything out of that revolving account. Then the following fiscal year 10, we only spent $1,800. We had $9,000 in revenue. So basically what was happening there is we were spending money when we needed to on appropriate items. They were uniforms or cost specific to the programs that we're running, but not the actual salaries of the officials or the coaches for the program.
Should we have been?
We should have been.
Yes.
Okay.
Because, I mean, revolving funds should reflect the expenditures and the revenues, just like all of the other revolving funds that we have in the district. So starting in fiscal year 17, and actually I did a little bit of it in 16, but in 17, I looked at everything, pulled out all the officials and everything as they related to each one of the 3 middle schools, and I started to spend that down appropriately. And as you can see, the expenditures exceeded the revenues that came in for that year.
So in FY '09,
Yeah.
they didn't spend any money from this account to pay for any of that stuff.
Came from
No.
the high school.
I'm sorry?
We hashed this out a year and a half ago. This came from the high school.
Okay,
So the high school was footing
footing the bill.
the bill basically for the grammar schools, and the money was being held. There's 2 schools which had a balance. Florence Sawyer also has, I think, had
Yeah.
a fairly healthy balance
Yeah.
also.
It's
And it was
just,
the same thing.
yeah, and I think a couple things, that this is money that parents pay
Yep.
for their kids to
Mhm.
participate, and I realize that it also helps out when there are families that cannot afford it.
Right.
But these are, and I think everybody would agree, extraordinary amounts to have in overage. The other thing that is my confusion is that we have a policy about, related to student activity accounts, which are different than the user fees.
Right, they're very different.
Okay. And there are, our policy with regard to student activity accounts was last revised in 2004. And MASC has an updated policy from 2016. Is there a relationship between the user fees and these accounts, or
No.
not at all?
No. Two separate.
That's very confusing for me.
The student activity funds that you're talking
Yeah.
about in that policy, those funds are for activities that happen outside the school day usually.
Yeah.
It's money collected from students
Yeah.
for for the students.
Yes,
The
yeah.
money does not belong to the district.
Right.
We're only custodians of the funds.
Yes, yes. And the student activity accounts are,
Their money. So it's the students' money, or the particular organization. So if you have a robotics club that has $1,800, it's their money. If you have a graduating class of this, again,
Yes.
this is where we run into, we had a lot of the graduating classes, the money was taken from the class members were not notified, and it was rolled into the district, and it was spent without the class knowing. And that's actually something that Hudson had a little bit of heat about. Well,
Yeah.
so I
It's
guess
something
what
Hudson had.
I'd like to see us do is to bring our policy with regard to student activity accounts up to date, because they're very different. And I think I sent you both policies. Have you looked at those?
It's,
yet?
yes, we looked at section J.
Oh,
We're,
okay.
we're a lot further ahead in the revision process
Okay.
than, because it's just, we could meet
Right.
every 2 weeks on a section of the manual.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm not, this is
But I
not
can
criticism. I'm just-
no,
yeah.
I can specifically tell you what Dorothy's recommended changes were, or whether or not we agreed as a subcommittee to
Okay,
bring
but
those
when we get
changes.
to it, that's fine.
Well,
Wait a
okay.
sec. So are
Okay,
you
sorry.
proposing to bring it sooner? Is that what you?
Well, the section J, that's section J.
Yeah.
That was the second section after the section D,
Yeah.
which is the one I think we want to tackle next. That was the next one. It's the longest section.
Sure,
But that is in there, and that
Okay.
was the reason why we went in that order.
sure.
Okay. So,
And then
yeah.
the other, I don't think we have a policy about user fees.
I'm not aware of any policy regarding user fees.
Does MASC
There's-
have one?
Yes. There. Yeah.
So we're
Oh,
gonna
I
get
didn't
one.
see that one. Okay, no, I didn't.
We're gonna get one.
When I looked up user fee, but anyway,
Yeah.
no, it just has to get straightened
Sure.
out, because people paid this money
Right.
for their kids to do something, and it just, the optics are not.
So today in Budget and Warrant, formerly known as the Finance Subcommittee, we discussed those very things, and
Oh.
we have, based on both the forensic audit, MASBO, and the CAP, and those two things that you just discussed are a couple policy amendments or additions that we are sending over to
Oh, good.
policy for recommendations,
Well, we're
which
gonna
I'll
meet.
discuss during the
We'll meet, right?
report out. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll meet. And
I think
send them
Pat,
across the table, right? We're gonna
Well-
meet about those.
I'm going to send a list
Okay.
that will be it's a public list.
No,
of
right.
you may
what we're
wanna
sending.
attend, somebody needs to attend.
We are.
Yes,
We're going to set up.
yeah, that's
We're
what I
going to
mean.
set up
We're
a
gonna
dual
set up
meeting,
a-
which may actually
yeah.
count as a school committee meeting if there's a quorum between
okay.
the two.
Okay.
But
Great.
yeah.
I wanna thank Pat for bringing this out into the sunshine
Totally.
for us.
Absolutely.
Really, really
Yeah.
important. I mean, I know a couple of people on the school committee have been commenting about this for a couple of years, and so thank you for bringing it forward.
I do have a question with both Hale and Florence Sawyer. They have. How do we reconcile the sums? They've got huge sums. That's stuff that can drive them for years. And I'm just thinking, those came from the parents of those particular students in the school to pay those user fees. Do either of those schools have, and maybe that's not the way you would handle it, it's really an administration thing, but I'm just thinking out loud, do they have like projects that they're don't have the funds for that might relate to the user fees? I think it was Hale, or maybe it was Center, or somebody was looking for the revitalization of an outdoor center that was there, and it was going to cost $5,000 to do or whatever, and we had shot that down at that time. But would the principal have the prerogative of being able to use those things to
that was
do
not
that, or
fair.
how would that work?
But
This is
it's,
a
but
budget
it's actually
thing.
used separately.
But you know what, so.
But they're user fees, so I don't know if it is.
Yeah, but see, then there's this whole other side of this, which is, so where did the money come from where,
That's right, that's the question.
okay, but just let me finish the thought, 'cause there's people that have
Mhm.
less knowledge than I do, which is really scary, but, so, let's just go through the process. So, I'm a parent, I write a check, my kid's got whatever the user fee is, $75, I don't know,
Mhm.
and I do that every season, and then there's a couple of clubs, and I do that, and so this goes into an account is growing, and then the school literally needs to use that money to offset for stipends or uniforms or whatever it is that's related specific to that particular activity. And the money wasn't used. And the money came from,
High school.
The regular appropriation.
so it came from the
The one-
general account,
Right.
which is so unfair to the other schools that were using the money that they collected for what it was intended for. And so now we've got a situation with a little pile of money for one school. You don't want to hurt the school for that pile of money, but how do we resolve
Right,
it?
how do you parse it?
So
Yeah.
part of how it came about is that the school committee did not have a budget for revolving accounts, this is one. And so they were a big secret, and the administration used them for their own purposes to balance various accounts over the years. So now revolving funds are a discussable part and an integral part of our budget. And so we get to talk about what to do about that as part of our
Yeah, but I don't think
overall
that
budget.
the school committee owns the responsibility of that situation.
Perhaps, no, but it's up
Right.
to us to figure out.
I mean,
what
and none
the
of us
right
were
thing to
there,
do.
so it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to
Right.
cover anybody's
No,
whatever,
again,
but
fixing a problem that
Right.
was
Yeah.
created, but the fact remains that this money was paid by families for their children's athletic, participation. Yeah,
Right.
But, you can buy, everybody can get new uniforms and hats and socks.
But then
and-
again, now I'm gonna.
No,
now
you're right,
I'm
but
gonna
they
take the
raise
position.
parity.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and I'm gonna
But-
take the position from the other schools, because if I'm, MRE, and I've been using my fund the way I should,
Yeah,
so why should I be penalized
Right.
for doing things the way I should? And then this other school's got the stockpile of cash that they can use for something extra. I don't know that that's fair.
and we can't reconcile it and give money back.
Well,
Like-
giving it back would be going into a different revolving account. Say, for example, if it's true that perhaps high school athletic funds were paying for some
Mhm.
elementary activity,
Mhm.
maybe the elementary fund owes the high school revolving
That's
fund.
right.
Can we do that?
But I don't know that that was the case.
It's-
We don't know.
I'm saying, I said if,
Oh,
right.
Okay.
We don't know,
Checks and balances.
we don't know until you actually look at the accounts 10 years back.
So, yeah, but you can't refund the money to the parents who paid it
Right. you
10
can't.
years ago, because their kids are no longer in the system, probably.
So back when
All right.
Kurt was here, I believe, memory, not as great as it used to be, but I believe that Tanya had come during the meeting and had explained that her accounts for athletics were covering all of, like, the various coaching stipends, or they were covering refs and things, and that was coming from, like, it was one budget, and then it was disseminated through the districts. And
Right.
that's
That's
my
exactly.
recollection, which means it would have been emanating from the high school. So, because these schools had their own user fee accounts, but they weren't siphoning up, some, for whatever reason, it was getting passed down, if you know what I mean. They were getting subsidized, and other schools weren't. It's just a big cluster.
I'm so sorry about all this. I can't believe.
So the question is the chicken and egg thing, right? Is it the school committee needs to vote to reappropriate something, or do you just take it and figure that out?
Because it's a different year, it's a different fiscal year.
So who can find that out? Who would
Yeah.
do that? Is it Pat? Is it you? Somebody?
Pat's gonna have to go back and take a look and see what we can.
So can you look into that, because this has to be resolved, although again, okay, one more mystery solved, unfortunately.
What exactly are you asking Pat to do?
Pardon?
What exactly are you asking Pat to do?
We gotta find out how we resolve this. I think
It's not just this though, it's the whole revolving, all the revolving of funds, because there's Alice Eaton funds that are sitting there that have things, that were donations that have been languishing there. There are funds that have gone out to organizations that don't exist anymore in the district, I mean,
It's a big picture. It's
Yeah.
not just one thing. This is one piece of it, you're right.
So is this going to the
I think this,
committee, or
to be
is-
honest with you, Lynn, this is part of now Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, part of a bigger picture that we just continue to pick away at, to try to, what's the word I can use? Resolve, yeah.
So, but what I'm a little confused about is what you've just tasked Pat with. Which little piece have you tasked her with?
I think what we asked her to do was to find out how do we resolve the situation with the Hale
Hale,
Athletic,
right, yeah,
the
we're just
massive
focusing
amount
on-
of
so
money
just
in
Hale.
there.
So
What
is it
can be
Hale and
done
Emerson or
with
Hale?
it? What-
Hale and Emerson, or just Hale?
I have Hale in front of me. If there's Emerson, if there's Alice Eaton, if there's something else, whatever, similar situations globally, 50,000 foot, what can be done? It'd be great to have that list of what those accounts are.
So part of one of the audit report outs that we got was we need to have a policy put in place that would either allow the superintendent or the administration it's the dissemination of funds. Like, how are you going to figure this out? There is no policy that exists to address the unique situation that we have. And the audit findings had said that that's what we need to do, is create something to allow, because right now, everything's wound up. And we need something that's going to allow everything to be unwound, right? And that is what we need to work with on policy, is come up with either a mechanism to allow Brooke and the administration to do that, or for the closing of account, however that would work. But we can't.
But it may be something as simple as a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But we're making it up unless we have the
Right.
framework to do that. We're just kind of like, well, what should we do? And we really need the framework to put the mechanism in place to be able to do whatever we want to do.
So I hear what you're saying. I guess what I'm asking is there some structure, some accounting standard that should be followed? And if there is, how do we get from the accounting standard from where we are now to where that needs to be? Because that's bigger than a policy question, right? I mean, that's actual steps that need to be taken.
Well, it could have happened, for example, it could have been just one athletic fund account.
Could have been.
It could have been in 2000, and it could have all gone into one account. It happened to have been one for each school. There's no guide to the administration as to how these accounts ought to be managed, and in a sense, we're kind of have the liberty to figure it out and decide what to do, because there hasn't been any
So we kind of have
policy or guidance.
we kind of have the
No.
from where we are today, the look back and how do we resolve what those accounts are now, and then to go forward, what's your what's your roadmap to make sure it doesn't happen and it's actually occurring correctly.
Right, and again, I believe we found out that there's actually, it's MGL or some sort of statute that says that the elementary K through 8 is supposed to have their own, the high school has their own, so it shouldn't be commingled, period.
But I would expect that to come from Pat, right? She's the business manager, so I
Right, so
I
that
would-
okay.
guidance, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm not a math person, so you know what you have to do, Pat? You know,
Yeah, I know what I have to do. I have to
She's
find
gonna-
out what we
Yeah,
can do
because
with the
two things.
funds.
What I heard was, she's gonna find a way to resolve the funds. And somewhere along the way, a policy is gonna be created to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Susan
So-
and finance are going to be working together on
With Pat.
policy.
We have to identify dormant funds and then what the disposition of the dormant fund would be. Like how if it's a dormant fund, it needs to be declared a dormant fund, and then how do you unwind it?
Well, that's Pat, right? So Pat would be identifying the funds.
The dormant fund, and then we have to have a policy that allows administration to be able to determine what they do.
And then it would come back to us.
Okay.
Does that make sense? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it because we're way off track.
So does she have a timeline for that?
Huh?
Timeline for that?
I think Pat probably,
I should be able to get an
get
answer
it
by the
to the next meeting, yeah. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Don't put another one of these in front of us, please. Oh, God. This is painful. Although I will say, to those of you on the school committee that were talking about this, you were right. So, anyway, moving on. OPEB meeting dates.
That should be a quick one.
Miss oh yeah, that's what you said the last time. Okay.
So we have reached out to Bartholomew and PARS, two separate public agencies that provide retirement services. The date of October 17th, which is a Tuesday, we bring one of them in at 5:30 and one of them in at 6 o'clock.
I think they said 6 and 6:30. Some people couldn't make it at 5:30.
Oh, is that what it was?
Is that right?
Neil
That's what I heard.
And the purpose of this
Is they're going to give a brief presentation on OPEB in layman's terms, a short history of their company, give us some districts that are served and how their returns on investment were, guidance on setting up correct internal structure and accounts, and recommendations for funding our liability.
Okay, so that's going to be on the 17th, so we were given a couple dates, and
Are we going to be voting at all? Because you have two different
So
companies
wait,
coming in, right?
Two.
okay, 1 second. So this is, are they going to be providing materials before the meeting for people to be able to review, or would they prefer?
I can ask them that. if they can
Okay,
get
because I
them.
think
They
the
can.
budget and warrant people are gonna be chomping at the
Sure.
bit. Okay,
And I'll just like to say, these people are like Fidelity, they're managers of funds.
yeah,
We still have these other things that we need to do as a school committee in relation to OPEB.
That's the guidance that they should be providing to us,
Right.
what we need to do and how we need to set those funds up.
Maybe. We should be interested in what they have to say, but we have to make some decisions.
But I've sent this list out to them and tell them this is specifically what we want them to talk about so that we do have the guidance.
good point. So, speak now, I think is Pat's, the next sentence would be, so if there's something else here that you're not seeing, speak now. Right?
what, is that going to be at 6 o'clock?
You said 6 o'clock?
6 and 6:30 is what you
6:30.
said.
That was the, do we have those questions?
Okay, I didn't.
I'm sorry, still
6 and 6:30
6 and 6:30.
on the 17th.
Right.
Okay, so October 17th at 6 o'clock. I think one of the things before we go, Lynn, I'll get there.
That's all right.
But I want to make sure that we're inviting guests to come and speak to us, and that if there is something that the committee would like to see that hasn't
Sure.
been discussed, we need to get that out on the table and have that discussion. Because I don't want to bring people in to speak to us about something that they think they're coming to talk to us about, and then get blindsided about something else. So if there's another issue or a topic that needs to be considered, bring it up so we can talk about it.
Sure, it's desirable to talk about the fact of a trust and who should be the trustees and how to organize the trust. These organizations manage funds when you have a trust. So it could be they have some things to say about OPEB.
I thought they
trusts.
were going to be talking to us about the trust.
So it could be their advice is interesting to us and we don't like it, or maybe we do, but they're not the only organization that thinks about trusts. And that's what I mean about that is something that we have to figure out and decide.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you questions
Sure.
without boiling the ocean,
Yeah.
okay? What is it that we need to do other than identify a reputable firm that does this with fidelity for other districts like us in order to set up the OPEB trust? What are the other, I mean, this is because I don't want the school committee to get down into the weeds on how,
Right, so when Dr. Hammond came out and met with us, there's two main players that he had to recommend, and these are the two main players.
okay.
These players should, and when I say guidance, I'm not talking about the fiscal guidance of it, but they should also, according to talking with Dr. Hammond, to your point, Mark, like what do we need to do to properly set up the structure as a district for being able to put OPEB together? They should be able to provide all of that information and put us on the right track for setting up the proper structure that works. And those are the decisions that we'll then have to vote to create the various trusts and so forth. But I think they will have that information.
Sure, they will have it.
Yeah.
So not really discussed, but something that has been done. I mentioned the treasurer of Plymouth, who actually set up a 2-county trust, which has a couple dozen municipalities and school districts as part of the trust. Like, you know, it could be, hypothetically, I'm not saying it's a great idea or necessary, but it could be all the regional schools want a joint trust. Let that be the common trust, and then there's a manager of the funds, which would be someone like PARS or Bartholomew. So there's this not quite discussed thing about the trust itself. Do we want to manage our own darn trust? Do we want to join with others? It's not a small conversation. We don't have to boil the ocean about it, but it is.
You really want
potentially
do you want the
worthwhile.
school committee to be in the business of managing a trust, an OPEB trust?
We have to be, because it's our OPEB trust. And part of why, you know, the treasurer of Plymouth or some other entity might have a multi-municipality trust is that maybe these districts or municipalities don't want to be trustees or appoint trustees, and then they would like to collaborate with others. So in that sense, you know, we have to appoint our own trustees, you know, with some regularity depending on what the trust document says. And that's, you know, we have to structure this entity. And it could be what PARS or Bartholomew has to say is useful and just right for us, but it's not the only thing. That's the main thing I want to say.
Right.
And it could be, maybe it would be useful to start a conversation with similarly located organizations. Regional school districts could be one, maybe even just our 3 towns. I'm not, you know, slanting it one way or another, but it might be a worthwhile conversation to have during the process, or maybe even after the process. Maybe we start the trust and then continue to decide, okay, do we really want this beast?
I think it's really important that we remember that this is just us dipping our toe in the water.
Right.
We're at the beginning point of this whole process. We know, I'll speak for myself, I know very little about this. I know the issues that are before us. I understand the evaluation and how it works. I get all that. So right now, I see this as our first step to bring experts to the table, to talk to the school committee, to just give us a little bit of knowledge to ground us. Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. So I'm not quite there yet, because we're just at the beginning point of this.
And maybe what I'm saying is, it's the same in a different way, saying we don't need to rush into something after meeting
So
with these
when
people.
we're talking about voting, I don't think we're anywhere near a vote.
Yeah.
If you think, like, again, speaking for myself, I'm so thrilled that we're taking this first step. Honestly, it's a big deal to me that we're taking the first step to actually take a look at doing something concrete. And I think our towns should look and say, yeah, this is awesome that you guys are doing this.
So I think we need to appreciate too that, I mean, it's a version of the Azabet Collaborative, right? I mean, it's sort of what we're doing this on the OPEB basis, I think what Mark's kind of talking about. And I think we need to know the business before we decide we're going to open up our own shop, if you know what I'm saying. So, so while there could be value in that, I'm sure that anybody having to do with the teachers that might be in this room right now might not appreciate the fact that the school committee is going to run the OPEB funds or whatever at the startup, you know. If we get that expert opinion and maybe we get something set up, then that gives us the time to take a good, healthy look at this and say, can we do it better? You know, before we, because I mean, you're building an organization within an organization to be able to do that. If you're talking about the trustees and so forth, and we have a hard enough time in all these towns finding enough people to step forward and do some of the other things. And I'm not saying that's not a worthy suggestion. I'm just saying there's a lot to putting that together.
And I respect, Mark, what you're saying here, because that's probably in some ways where I'm headed to, my own thought. We want to be, and I know, Lorraine, you are like this too.
I'm about to have a heart attack, but go on.
It's about being thoughtful. It's about taking our time. It's about being well informed. We are in no rush to do this. The fact is, we've got a budget line now that's got this on. Like, we've taken some concrete steps forward. I don't feel in any hurry. There's no artificial timeline in my mind that says by January 15th we will have this done. That's not at all where I'm coming from at all. Let's be thoughtful, let's take our time, and let's have lots of room for discussion on it.
I just think that these two sources are money managers. I don't think we're anywhere near that kind of discussion point. I think what we need to do is have legal counsel or someone come in and talk to us about the establishment of the trusts, how the trusts operate, how we get people to manage the money. There's 1,000 money managers out there, okay? What we need to do is find out, how do you structure a trust? Is it better for us
Isn't
to
that
have
what
it
they're
as
going to be providing
That's
us
what-
with?
that's what we've asked them to
Steve,
do.
I think that's what
Yeah.
they're going to be providing us
Okay.
with. However,
But they're
let's
selling us
just
something.
time out, okay? Just time out. They're not selling us anything because we're not buying anything. They're giving us, here's how it works. This is what it is. That's what they're doing. And in order for them to even get us to that step down the road, they know that they've got to spoon feed a group of people from communities that make up a school committee board. They get it. So I hear what you're saying. We're not there yet, but I think that these people, that's what they do. Like, they have, their sales cycle is not 5 months. I'm sure of it. So I think, to your point, we're going to get that information, and we're not there with the selection of who and how, and but I do think this is the first step. I don't think the first step is bringing in counsel, because council's not, they're going to tell us to go talk to these people or an entity. And there may be, at some point, there may be someone that you want to bring in from Plymouth. I don't know what you guys want to recommend. You want to bring it forward? But I think we have to start somewhere with people who do this for a living, and we know we're not going to sign anything. What is it that we don't know? That's what needs to be answered, I think, around the
Yeah, I
table.
agree.
And so Dr. Hammond, were you here? I don't know who was here.
Steve was.
Okay, so when Dr. Hammond came here, he gave us some advice on OPEB. One of his advices were to get us ramped up and get this understanding on the OPEB was to bring one or two of these companies in as an informational resource. And that's what they're going to be making.
Okay.
So it's not a sales pitch that anyone's voting on now.
No.
I understand.
We've got a long road that's got to, and then we have to do our due diligence at that point.
Right, but let's have them come in and educate us. Because you guys, you three, may know more than the rest of us do. You may have a better handle on it, Lynn.
So are we gonna get the list that she has, so we know what's being asked of, because she sent
Sure.
this to them, so that these guys can add to it if they feel like they have to?
Well, I want to be cautious of that, because the last thing we're going to do is bring these groups in that now we know we're not ready to sign on the dotted line, and then ask them to do a ton of work for us. We're not going to be able to do that. I think we let them come. Can you just circulate what you...
Sure.
That way, and then if you circulate that and somebody has something specific they want to know, send it up to me, I'll get it to Pat, and then we'll see if
We've
there's
got to
any.
have PowerPoints that they could just send us and just review the PowerPoint, see if you have any questions, and we all need to get ramped up and like up to speed.
They're not going to give us our PowerPoints before they come, though. I mean, right before they come, they will, but they're not going to say, here's all our material, and then,
But there's gotta be an
Give us a
OPEB
call.
primer. There's gotta be something that says,
Yeah,
this
no.
is what an OPEB is.
well, that's
and-
on us, too. I mean, go out and Google it, you know? Let's, I don't know what's going on tonight.
Just let them
Can
do
you
the
just send out the questions, or send it to the group, and then if you guys have other things that you're interested in, funnel them in, and then we'll go from there. But I don't want to over-engineer this, we're just at the first step.
And plus, we have them for a half hour.
Okay, so everybody take a deep breath, because this is, get grounded. If you want to do some of your own research, that Google machine's amazing.
Google machine, I like that.
Okay, moving on, we're late. Subcommittee reports, Neil.
Oh my God. Last meeting, not today, but last meeting, we went over basically reports which were based on what we had talked about during the offsite that we did over the summer. And so we put together a list of reports. We need to revisit that list before we bring that forward to the school committee, because I want to make sure that the three of us are all synced up and on board with what I've put together. And then today, we went over policy recommendations that we would be bringing forward to policy based on the corrective action plan, which is based on the forensic and the MASBO reports. So again, like we had talked about, the framework to make everything work. And so we've identified those things. We're now pushing them over to policy. We're going to be meeting as a group and sort of redefining things for policy, answering questions they may have, and giving them some suggestions. And hopefully there's a lot of brand new stuff that's already out there that's addressing a lot of these things.
That's good. That's great.
That's it.
That's
so we're
awesome.
trying to do
though.
one or two things per meeting and just laser focused. We're good.
But also the content will mostly be at top of a list with work to be done. We still have to figure out the details of what.
You want to be the treasurer, don't you? Okay, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Policy, Ms. Reardon.
We're meeting with Dorothy in 2 weeks to go over another section. And then I just wondered if I make those changes to the bylaws, I already emailed her about those specific questions. For next time, if we could do both the bylaws, and I was thinking section D, but it seems like we won't be able to meet in time to do that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, because we want to, whatever, do you
We
have
could do
section
section B is, I have all ready to
Send it
send
to
out,
us.
and it's short, and we'll feel
Send
good
it
about
to us,
getting it done.
because I just think, I'm just speaking for myself and probably most people at the table. I need time to review
Yep.
that, like, I don't want to
can send that when I
rush
get
it.
home. Yeah. That's
So
all.
if we could get to a point where we get 2 weeks for each cycle,
Yep.
when you're asking us to review, that would probably be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I would do that. Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. And then maybe D after that, right?
Elise isn't here. Thank you, Susan. Elise isn't here, but she did have a report out on CPAC, but she will be reporting out next time, at the next meeting. And personnel's meeting on Monday, and I don't know if there are any, Lynn.
Task force, our minutes are out. They had high school walkthroughs. And the meeting that we had was informational. So,
All right, any questions on that? Okay. Correspondence of note. Consent agenda, let's assume that the meeting minutes of September 27, 2017, and the warrants, which I think, has everybody signed them? For October 13th, are approved. Items for next agenda, Pat's going to go over dormant accounts for us. We're going to review proposed changes to the bylaws. And now we've got to really look at this. I really need you to look at this and make sure everything is okay, because there's a lot. We've got the school choice hearing and vote next meeting. That should be pretty good.
Is that, sorry. Is that something, I know last year we talked about that in policy first, and then, but we don't need to do that, right?
The school choice?
No,
You were, yeah, it was whether to get, remember it was on the agenda, we discussed it, then we brought it to the school committee, but we don't need to. I just asked because we're meeting with
No,
Dorothy
I
that
don't
day.
think, I don't think we need to do that this
Okay,
year.
okay.
I think basically, but I believe we have to have a public hearing.
We do.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the piece, that we need to make sure that we've given ample opportunity for anybody to come forward to speak at that point in time. So I think that's the missing, not really a missing piece, but a piece we need to make sure.
I don't think it would hurt, though. I mean, maybe it wouldn't hurt to have policy bring forward a recommendation, although does it belong in policy?
No, it was just, I don't
weird,
remember
doesn't it?
why we discussed
It
it
happens to
last
have
year.
been done that way the year before as well.
Yeah.
Policy actually met with some parents who were
Well,
lobbying,
That may
and
have
that
been,
was a way to
I just
have a
asked because
conversation.
we're pretty
That may have
busy
been
that
because of,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think this year we need is to have the hearing and then the vote.
And the discussion. Okay.
We post the hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Alita's on it. She's,
It's
it's gotta
already
be
posted, it has
advertised.
to be 10 days. It's already been sent out to all the newspapers.
Extended day in food service, thank you
Yep.
on that. SPED and an MRE student presentation, so we're kind of chock full.
Superintendent goals too,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
should take long.
Yeah.
It never does.
Okay, and if that works, unless somebody, if you guys have something else you want to put on the agenda, sweet Lord help us. But if you do, please feel free to send it forward, and if we have to rejigger, we will. And I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Mark, all those in favor? It's unanimous, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you for your patience.